So hello and welcome everybody to another Sacred Wisdom podcast. In this podcast today, we are doing a free Atlas update. And we're going to discuss the remote viewers and some other kind of angles of it. So welcome, Stephen.
Hello, Zach. I'm hope all's well with you, and I know you're frenetically busy as usual, getting on with various creative endeavours, and I'm also very busy.
And yet again, NASA didn't supply the correct image, or would I say it was a correct image, but it was just pretty flaky, wasn't it, Steve? Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, for the huge budget that the National Aeronautics and Space Administration or NASA have, you would have thought it would have been a far more high definition image or images of C2025 N1 Atlas, or as we now know it is 3i Atlas, and it was actually just a fuzzy, hazy sort of outline of a ball of light.
And it does pose the question whether or not this is kind of meant to look stupid and meant to look make it look pointless and not mean anything whatsoever.
Whether or not 3i Atlas is an interstellar vessel that actually sent the WOW signal that was received at the Ohio State University Radio Observatory, the OSURO, or the Big Ear Radio Telescope as it's called, at the Department of Astronomy at Ohio State University on the 12th of August 1977, remains to be really given confirmation. It's never really been fully verified. Now, whether, again, 3i Atlas has travelled from Ross 154 or V1216 SGR in the Sagittarius constellation, again, also has to be given further verification. It's speculative. There's no actual confirmation of that.
We have to be very careful. And obviously, we are aware NASA don't give the full truth, but this is particularly a snub in the face, I feel, and it's very insulting considering. So yeah, you're coming.
Well, it is when you take a look, at the incredible video frames, whether they are in JPEG image format or PNG image format, from the fantastic film footage of John Leonard Wilson, who is based in the United Kingdom of Great Britain. Obviously, I would say to viewers of this Sacred Wisdom podcast, please go to the John Leonard Wilson YouTube channel, and please do view the 4 incredible videos that he has produced on C2025 N1 Atlas that we now know as 3i Atlas. Compared to what the National Aeronautics and Space Administration or NASA is producing, they are not remotely comparable. It is absolutely farcical. The watered down, rather pathetic version of Western science they're presenting to Joe public over 3i Atlas. And I still believe that it is some kind of interstellar alien probe. It is not a comet. It's certainly not a tailless comet, and it is not an asteroid. And
I know. I just want to say on this, because this is a big point for me as well. And I mean, I know a lot of people we don't fully support everything NASA say. By the way, NASA have done certain experiments that are very real, very true. But
they've done incredible amounts of research and development over the last 50, 60 years.
It's these half truths, and this is what's going on at the moment. And to me, this feels like most people will lose complete faith in these.
This is in the same vein as the Apollo lunar program.
Exactly.
On the moon, where obviously what is believed to have been encountered is the remnants or artifacts of some kind of interstellar civilization that was produced by extraterrestrials or ultra-terrestrials, and whether or not there's actually still a biological presence of extraterrestrials or ultra-terrestrials on the moon. So they had to completely redo the entire Apollo lunar program in terms of the footage and various video frames or imagery. So the photographic evidence of the Apollo lunar program, some of it is very questionable, some of it is not questionable. I think some of it is valid. I think a lot of it's being mixed together. Yeah, it's to conceal what's really going on the surface of the moon and what the moon actually really is. And this is the same as 3i Atlas, is that it came, from it's literally interstellar, meaning it's come from another star system, traveled across the interstellar medium into this solar system. It's really something that we don't understand, and the Joe public, you know, whether it's the American people, the Canadian people, the citizens of European nations, or just human beings all over planet Earth, have a right to know really what 3I Atlas is. And it certainly, again, is not a comet or a tailless comet or any kind of asteroid. Like, you know, it's like they want 3I Atlas just to go away, just to sort of sail away back out into the outer solar system, disappear, so that, you know, Homo sapiens or human beings can just go back to sleep in their third-party Betelgeuse system and just be regulated and controlled, and just go back to, you know, watching the crappy television.
Coronation Street. You can't.
Yeah. Anyway, so what we do know is that when it comes to the remote viewing side of things, there is a huge amount of credible remote viewing that has been done. And one individual is Richard Allgeier, and he was a former reporter with KITV 4 Island News in Honolulu, which is located in central Hawaii. Now, both he, Dennis Nappy, Edward Reardon, and Darren Smith from the Future Forecasting Group, or the FFG, did remote viewing on 3I Atlas. Now, the initial session that Richard Allgeier did by himself was on the 22nd of August 2025. And then after this, remote viewing was done again with Richard Allgeier, Dennis Nappy, Edward Reardon, and Darren Smith, and a few others. And that was done on the 18th of September 2025. And they're all at the Future Forecasting Group, FFG. Highly credible information. And again, it was confirmed on the first the initial remote viewing session and the second remote viewing session that it is an interstellar alien spaceship. They are saying it's occupied by various kinds of extraterrestrials, possibly some kind of robotic or mechanistic entities or life forms. It's not exactly clear, but it certainly is not a comet or a tailless comet. And it's certainly not an asteroid. We have to remember also the elites and the secret societies, when it comes to Project Bluebeam, had their own plans to be rolled out on their own schedule. And 3I Atlas, it does not appear to be part of Project Bluebeam. In fact, that's another reason they would rather it just goes away, because it could actually sabotage or actually, shall we say, indirectly, inadvertently, sort of actually cause disruption to any kind of plans for a Project Bluebeam, which I don't think would be successful if that was kind of rolled out and presented anyway to Homo sapiens or human beings on planet Earth.
You can see the last 4 years it's played out, this kind of Bluebeam. Some of this technology has been used, I believe, and it's not working out too well, is it, Steve? You know, people.
So when it comes to NASA, we have to remember they are a civilian space agency. Now, that is important to always remember that. So they have to give in terms of public relations with the American people and human beings all over planet Earth, there's a version they have to give. And anytime it comes to anything to do, I think, with extraterrestrials or ultra-terrestrials, or the subject of the unidentified flying object or UFO, then suddenly they have to start creating diversions and using terminology in Western science to try and pretend they're being rational and logical, while at the same time what's really going on is it's acting as a diversion to conceal what is really going on, which they don't want Joe public to know about. And I think a lot of individuals are starting to realize that with NASA now this is going on. And they are really at the forefront as a civilian space agency when compared to, say, the European Space Agency or the ESA. So it's difficult to really gauge when there's going to be any kind of shift in that perception. So we have to remember that Richard Allgeier was actually interviewed by the estimable American journalist Linda Moulton Howe about the remote viewing of 3I Atlas in one of the actual episodes of her Earth Files series on her YouTube channel. And the title of that was given as Advanced Alien Tractor Beam Controlling 3i Atlas, and that Earth Files podcast was put out on the 1st of October 2025 by Linda Moulton Howe. Fascinating information. I would recommend viewers go and check that out on her Earth Files YouTube channel. Linda Moulton Howe, absolutely fantastic journalist into the subjects of UFOs and extraterrestrials, ultra-terrestrials, a very credible American journalist, and it's a really interesting interview she has with Richard Algar. So please do go and have a look at that.
So Steve, what is the kind of, I mean, the remote viewers, they are stating that it is an alien craft.
Yeah, so the point is with remote viewing, if it's scientific remote viewing or SRV, and then you have the version that was then further developed by the US Army, US Navy, US Air Force, US Marine Corps, US Space Force, which is called controlled remote viewing or CRV. These have very, very stringent parameters. The way it's being developed with huge amounts of research and development puts this directly at odds with the narrative coming from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, concerning C2025 N1 Atlas or 3i Atlas, in terms of it being just a comet or a tailless comet, or it possibly being an asteroid, and all this other gumph they keep coming out with. Well, there's many of the imagery show the fuzzy blob, this fuzzy whitish fuzzy or blob or whatever it is in the solar system. And they're still saying it's got a tail, but every time you look at it, there is no tail visible in that image. The reason they're showing such opaque or vague-looking imagery of 3i Atlas is to obscure, is to disguise or conceal the actual geometric contours and outline of the object. Which, if you go and look at the fantastic film footage of John Leonard Wilson here in the United Kingdom of Great Britain, you will clearly see. Now, maybe some of that isn't 3i Atlas. Perhaps they are interstellar vessels that are part of a secret space program or SSP. Perhaps it's connected to the Solar Warden program that's out there, and so forth. But I have seen, shall we say, JPEG images or PNG images from other amateur astronomers in the United Kingdom of Great Britain, as well as in France and Germany and elsewhere, that show very similar and outline designs in terms of them seeing 3i Atlas with their own telescopic equipment, as to what is being filmed by John Leonard Wilson here in the United Kingdom of Great Britain, but not obviously by any of the individuals employed at NASA or anywhere else. And it's kind of crazy. There seems to be this massive contradiction going on.
See, that's where it gets very interesting, because you realize that and obviously, as we know, NASA's giving half truths as always, but particularly on this point, it makes you think, well, what else is out there? And what John Leonard Wilson is photographing is particularly strange, and it really is. It seems to me that I mean, when you look at the history of the space program, really, you will know that there is a lot of activity going on up there, and there's a lot of things that we have no idea. We have no idea about.
And also, you've got to remember the work of Norman Berggren. He was employed by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA. He wrote a very, very famous book that many of you have heard, called Ringmakers of Saturn.
Yeah.
Now, in that book, very clearly, you also see specific photographic evidence, whether in JPEG or PNG image format. You clearly see around the Saturnian rings what appears to be vast cylindrical looking interstellar spaceships. They have a clear geometric contouring or outlines. There are very unusual luminescent geometrically shaped objects. It just doesn't make any sense. And these are vast in magnitude and size within, the outer solar system. And, so we know there's a lot going on out there that isn't being discussed. And again, if NASA is classed as a civilian space agency, they have a mission statement, not in terms of NASA missions going out into the solar system, But in terms of its public relations with the American people, to some extent, Canadian people, and human beings on a generic level across planet Earth, to give a version in terms of using the terminology of Western science to say, well, we're very, very conventional, and this is the Western science, and this is how this is what's going on. And they use that knowing that the vast majority of individuals who are viewing what is going on in different NASA presentations are not going to question really their version of Western science when they try to pretend they're rationalizing and logicalizing out.
I mean, how can they? I mean, you know,
extraterrestrial or ultra terrestrial presence that's in the solar system.
I mean, NASA have billions of pounds, trillions possibly as well. So, I mean, their equipment is megally advanced. So you can't argue with them. The point I'm making, you can't argue with them because obviously they have all the equipment. So, you know, how can you go up against that?
That's part of the stagecraft that if you say that the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, has a $70 billion annual budget, how can they be wrong? I mean, we have to say again, they have done an incredible amount of research and development that we have to look at. A lot of what they do that in terms of, in terms of research and development is fantastic. I mean, you see the footage and the photographic evidence from the Jovian moons, the Saturnian moons, the Uranian moons, the Neptunian moons, or even when you see like Pluto up close, it's incredible.
But anything to do with extraterrestrial life, any free energy technology, will point the camera away.
We're going to recap, get this in. We're going to get in terms of perceptivity. We have to understand the actual Stargate project was a US Army unit that was established around the 20th of June 1977 at Fort George G. Meade in central Maryland by the Defense Intelligence Agency, or the DIA, and the program director was Harold Edward Puthoff, and the senior research physicist involved in the Stargate project back then was Russell Gerard Targ from the Stanford Research Institute, or SRI International. Now, both the program director, Harold Edward Puthoff, and the senior research physicist, Russell Gerard Targ, had become employed by Stanford Research Institute, the SRI International, on the 14th of September, I believe, 1972. And this was based at Stanford University in Menlo Park in the San Mateo County in Northern California to investigate the potential of psychic observations by using, shall we say, scientific remote viewing, or SRV. Now, Fort George G. Meade is an installation of the United States Army that includes the Defense Information School, the Defense Media Activities. I'm not going to give the acronyms for each of these because then it slows it down. The United States Army Field Band and the headquarters of the United States Cyber Command, the National Security Agency, and many of you know that's obviously the NSA, the Defense Courier Service, that one's, you can say, it's DCS, and then you've got the Defense Information Systems Agency, or the DISA, and then you've also got the Cryptologic Warfare Group 6, CWG6 of the United States Navy. So this is all going on there. You've got all of this in one vast installation, you know, through the US Defense Department, and all of these different groups in one way or other have probably been connected to the Stargate project. We know the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, has been involved. So then we come to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, who's a civilian agency, and you get a fuzzy ball of light, and you're told it's a comet or a tailless comet, and it's doing all these different things. Like it's got a small change in, you know, which is a non-gravitational change in its trajectory, which means that it's something that is mechanistic, maybe an automated navigation system on board has changed that. Now, Richard Alguy at the Future Forecasting Group, the FFG, during his initial actual remote viewing session, said that he saw a tractor beam coming from the outer solar system, that is beyond the orbit of Pluto, beyond the Great Oort Cloud, and that was steering C2025 N1 Atlas, or 3i Atlas, into the actual solar system. So it was being moved in. He said, and on board, he saw some kind of AI navigation system that obviously was connected to that tractor beam. So who were these individuals that could have been extraterrestrials or ultra-terrestrials, which with such incredibly advanced kinds of space technology that could do something like that with a vast, shall we say, interstellar object or vessel or spaceship, which is what 3i Atlas is. And then all we get from NASA is, it's just that fuzzy sort of little ball of light, and it's moving now back towards Jupiter. Thank goodness it's leaving the solar system.
Kind of part of me thinks that maybe this is meant to happen, that maybe we are meant to have a collapse of these institutes. Maybe that is part of this whole thing, and maybe 3i indirectly is collapsing that as well, sort of interestingly. I find it interesting the way it's all playing out.
Well, I don't think if we look at the Star Trek universe that we're any time soon going to get to the founding of the United Federation of Planets, which in the Star Trek universe timeline took place, I think, on the 8th of May, 2161. So we're currently what we have with a civilian space agency that can't even admit that at the very least that they should really be kind of looking further into what 3i Atlas is.
So we had the most ridiculous presentation really from NASA. It felt like watching something out of Play School. What other things have been going on, Steve?
Well, we have to remember, for example, there's a huge amount of information that's coming out about 3i Atlas, but in terms of what happened with the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, so they gave a presentation called NASA Shares Interstellar Comet 3i Images that was actually put out on their YouTube channel on the 19th of November 2025. And this was purposed to really suppress actual knowledge concerning C2025 N1 Atlas or 3i Atlas. And the event was used by NASA to share purportedly the latest or the newest images that they had of 3i Atlas. And so this presentation called NASA Shares Interstellar Comet, there's that word again, 3i Atlas Images, only showed rather blurry, vague and opaque sort of visuals concerning 3i Atlas. Now, the individuals that were there obviously were very shall we say the senior management of NASA. So we had Amit Kshatriya, who is the NASA Associate Administrator based in the Mary W. Jackson NASA headquarters building in Washington, D.C. We had Nicola Justin Fox, who is the Associate Administrator of the Science Mission Director, or the SMD. We had Sean Domagal Goldman, who is the Interim Director of the Astrophysics Division, or the AD, and Deputy Director of the Sciences and Exploration Director, or the SED, at the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, which is in Prince George's County in southwestern Maryland. We have Dr. Thomas Statler, who is the lead scientist for Solar System Small Bodies, or SSSB, and he's based in the Planetary Science Division, or PSD, at the Mary W. Jackson NASA headquarters building in Washington, D.C. And there's also the program scientist for many NASA missions. So they had all these individuals there to give you this idea that this is really credible kinds of, rather unique Western science we've got to deliver. But the truth is, they really weren't that interested in sharing the actuality of what 3i Atlas is. And it's interesting to note that on many YouTube channels, so many pundits or podcasters are coming out and questioning the official narrative now. You look at so many individuals that are just saying this doesn't make any sense at all what's going on, because many of them know amateur astronomers. And an individual like John Leonard Wilson is incredible. What he has produced and has shown, not just many of these what were interstellar vessels or spaceships, or what looks like a possible breakaway civilization or a secret spacecraft, SSP, but the 4 videos that he has produced with clear film footage that can be, and you look at the video frames of these, you look very carefully, And you can clearly see that 3i Atlas has a contoured geometric outline. It appears to have some kind of very, very, very extensive mechanical appendage or arm that it's able to move, and it acts as some kind of maybe cosmic or solar radiation shield. It appears also to be able to produce ionized spheres of, I don't know, electrified gas or whatever it is, because in one of these videos you can see objects emerging from some part of this very intensely luminescent geometric contoured structure that is possibly an interstellar spaceship or an alien probe of some kind. None of it makes any sense. We know it's highly metallic, it's highly reflective, and so the closer it gets to our yellow dwarf star or G2 star, the sun, the more iridescent, the more colourful, and the brighter it gets. Now, in terms of when it comes to grayscale and contrast and colour saturation, this makes it very difficult to see. And I wonder whether the National Aeronautics and Space Administration or NASA, whether they know that, so they can just say, well, it's a fuzzy ball, it's just a comet, it's exuding carbon dioxide, or, you know, and there's no outline to it, when actually what it is the highly reflective, luminescent and metallic surface of this geometrically shaped.
It's kind of getting brighter in places, isn't it?
It's getting brighter, and it got brighter and brighter. It also changed color, possibly to do with different kinds of gases. There was, you know, there's been a lot of conceptualizing and speculating going on. So when it comes to so many of the YouTube videos, they're just clickbait. You see all the individuals are putting up these sensationalistic thumbnails with stupid imagery of, you know, of huge glowing like stones or rocks or vast interstellar spaceships that are being produced with,
and the news is stating
or CGI or whatever they're doing. It just looks ludicrous, really.
And the news is the mainstream news is now saying it's coming to Earth, you know, and giving this fear element. So that was expected anyway. But no, I feel that, you know, what you're saying, and I think the point we're at in our evolution and where we are in planet Earth, if you didn't realize already, and I'm sure most people are aware, that we are a complete mess on this planet. Like the leaders, everything is absolutely insane what's happening on this planet, the measures that are going forward, and they continue to get pushed. You know, they have an agenda and they're pushing forward with it. Now, vibrationally, if you look at that cosmically, that we would maybe attract some sort of other intelligence, something to give us an awakening, to wake us up, maybe to see another perspective. We need that. We need that needs to happen. I mean, humanity is in a deep sleep at the moment, and we have to rise up. And you know, I think that 3i is a symbol of that, and I've said it before. And the reason why it's so interesting, as I've mentioned previously, is that UFOs and spacecraft, when they come onto planet Earth, they fold in space-time, which is a very different process. What we're actually seeing now is an interstellar object flying at what, 250,000 miles per hour or something along them lines.
No, 3i Atlas has been traveling from around 130,000 miles an hour
very
up fast. To around 150,000 miles an hour. So it's for the size of the object, which is reported to be around 33 billion tons in weight. It is absolutely huge.
And just want to finish what I was saying. It's just that being there, and I know I said it before, but that being present in our skies is for us to kind of, I feel, expand. And I think Stephen feels the same. It has to happen, you know, something big has to happen like that.
It will, you know, in terms of creating a sense of wonderment, the heavens above, the solar system, the Milky Way galaxy, and, you know, across the vast wider expanse of the physical universe, that's where we need to really head to. Whether that's a Star Trek universe that we're going into, eventually we will enter into some kind of scarcity-free system. Maybe there will be food synthesizers and replicators and all the rest of it. But it seems like in terms of experiential understanding and incarnations, the Homo sapiens, or human beings now, are meant to deal with a lot of this gump and complexities here on planet Earth, here in 2020. We can even look at anything that could be comparable to reaching warp drive, which you see in the Star Trek universe, I think on the 5th of April 2063, and then the establishing of some kind of United Federation of Planets on the 8th of May 2161 in the Star Trek universe narrative. We have a long way to go on planet Earth, I think, because currently human beings probably couldn't take what they are now out there. There's too much negativity and destructiveness and just inverted thinking and cognitive dysfunction. And a lot has to change, and there has to be huge improvements, and those things need to start happening, and they need to start happening soon. But as an initiation into a way of inviting us, if you like, to look at the heavens above, the night skies, the constellations, maybe that's what C2025 N1 Atlas or 3i Atlas is there to do. It's creating I believe that it has a form of space technology, that it has been able to produce some of these X-class flares and possible coronal mass ejections, or CMEs, on the surface of the sun that have been occurring over the past few weeks. That's open to speculation. But I feel on a psychic level, that's what I'm sensing has gone on with 3i Atlas, that it is a vast interstellar probe. It has accumulated unbelievably vast amounts, if you like, of knowledge concerning other interstellar civilizations, life forms, ecosystems, planets, moons, and everything really that's out there in the physical universe, probably over the past 500,000 years, maybe 600,000 years, 700,000 years, or maybe even over 800,000 years. Maybe it did come from Ross 154, the Sagittarius constellation. Again, we just haven't got confirmation of that, but it certainly is not a comet. It's not a tailless comet, as I've said quite a few times in this Sacred Wisdom podcast, and it's not an asteroid.
I mean, Steve, it's no doubt, it's definitely, this is it's peculiar, and we don't know exactly what it is, but I know it's definitely more than just a comet, and this is something.
Well, and absolutely, and I think you're not going to find, for example, Sean Patrick Duffy, who's the interim administrator of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, who you can technically say he is the director of NASA, but he's officially titled as the interim administrator. And you're not going to find Joseph Ashbacher, who is the Director General of the European Space Agency, or the ESA, ever coming out and saying, absolutely, 3i Atlas is an interstellar visitor. It's some kind of extraterrestrial probe that's come into our solar system, because the entire model of the functionality of both NASA and the ESA being civilian space agencies at that point, to some extent, becomes mute if they admit that, because then they have to realize their role has to change, and that the mission statement of what their purpose is as civilian space agencies would have to change. And that could be perhaps problematic for them. I don't know, but who knows?
I mean, I know, I understand that if it was a threat, that maybe there was a sort of pullback on information, but withholding truths creates all this rubbish and speculation, and as you know, like alternative conspiracy theories, and just
none of the remote viewers have seen. They've not seen it as a threat. None of the remote viewers, and there's been dozens. I mean, it's a lot of considerably high numbers of remote viewers have, and not just Richard Alguy and the others at the Future Forecasting Group, the FFG, and not one individual has said that 3i Atlas is any kind of indirect or any kind of direct threat to human beings here on planet Earth. It's not. It really isn't any threat at all. It's not about. It
doesn't feel like that. And if it was a high intelligence, why would it want to threaten humanity? It could wipe humanity out in a blink of an eye. So why would it matter? But I know some of the people on the channel, they prescribe to the idea that we're in this flat realm and this is simulation above us. But that, I mean, look at whatever reality makes you progress. Look at, if that reality you're looking at makes you feel better and progress and opens your mind. Brilliant. But I can tell you now that this idea of the realm and the simulation, it limits yourself. And this is what I'm very aware of with information. Anything that limits you in who you are is information that you shouldn't really give too much attention to. So just that fact, on regardless of all the points that people make about history and this not being right and NASA lying to us, and so that even the Van Allen belt, where people believe that we haven't even got through that. Well, maybe whatever the case, I can tell you right up above us is a vast universe, and it stretches however long, however big this place is, and we have been made to just stay on this reality. So this is planet Earth. There's nothing more than this world, and that realm, that flat model, fits perfectly into that. You see?
I mean, there's not much else really to add apart from, I believe, a possible fact in the future is that what 3i Atlas really is going to become pretty evidential, discernible at some point, maybe perhaps by maybe the 31st of March 2026, perhaps maybe by the 30th of June 2026, who knows, maybe beyond that. But it can't stay like this, because I believe there is possibly much larger interstellar vessels or objects, whatever they are, that are connected or linked to C2025 N1 Atlas or 3i Atlas, that are possibly located, you know, below our solar system or just above our solar system, may enter it with a very steep parabolic trajectory at extremely fast velocity in the future, and they're going to be much larger. They may come in through the Great Oort Cloud past Pluto, and the trans-Neptunian objects may be coming in possibly past Neptune and Uranus in that direction across the ecliptic plane in towards, you know, the main asteroid belt and to the planet Mars, and obviously Mother Earth here. Whether that happens or not in that way, I don't know. It's conceptual, it's open to speculation, but I sense that 3i Atlas is not a random event. That's the point I'm making. And it's connected to something in the future that could happen in 2026, possibly 2027, maybe at a stretch in the first few months, maybe by, you know, end of the first quarter or the end of March, you know, 2028 perhaps, or a bit after that. But something, I feel there's other things connected to it. We did see all this with obviously C2025 V1 Borisov, which was apparently another comet that wasn't a comet, that seemed to move at almost an identical speed of around 130,000 miles per hour up to 150,000 miles per hour over a protracted duration, along with C2025 N1 Atlas or 3i Atlas within the inner solar system. Then, according to what the official narrative that was given out there, it apparently just vanished. So it appeared, what is that, a teleporting comet now? And then it reappears and then it disappears. And nobody seems to know the trajectory or the route it's taken, you know, where it's even located, and then it suddenly reappears. That was very unusual, and it wasn't seen.
Steve, I think
it wasn't.
Sorry, you know, I just think there's going to be a vast amount of unusual things happen in the next 2-3 years, and I think this is only just the beginning. And I think, you know,
Lines in the heaven.
We've been you could say almost like a calling. Humanity is crying out. Humanity needs help, and I'm not saying these are coming here to help us, but it's the awakening of the consciousness that will help us. And you know, it really is.
That's to do with the New Age movement and the idea of benevolent aliens coming here. We don't need any of that, because if you go back into, you know, you can go to the Upper Paleolithic or the Neolithic age. You can take a look at, you know, the etchings or the petroglyphs of the cave people. And in the past, yes, you know, there was visitations on
100%
numerous occasions by extraterrestrials, rock terrestrials. They were revered in a way as the cosmic deities. We don't want any of that. No. So
No, we don't, and we want truth, and that's what we want. We want information that supports our evolution, and we go forward in a positive light. You know, that's the only way forward for us.
Yeah,
But Stephen,
absolutely.
thanks so much. You can also purchase our book Mysterious Realities, which is available on Amazon in ebook and paperback. And you can also purchase that on my site and various other places online. And that contains a lot of information around the kind of whole alien UFO movement and everything that's happened over the last 50 years. And there is actually some incredible research Stephen's done in there. Please subscribe if you haven't. You can also join the members section where we have exclusive content and extra podcasts and various other little bits and pieces. But for now, it's a bye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.